Hello, this is a short video presentation on deriving the quadratic formula. When we derive something, we start with one thing and we end up with something else, usually a formula. Before we start though, I quickly want to address one thing that I've mentioned to some of you, but I somehow neglected to put in a video. What are the names of these terms? This is the constant term because regardless of what x is, it never changes. If x is 2, this term is different than if x is 3. It changes. This one doesn't. This is the linear term. And it's the linear term because if we think of a line, y equals 2x plus 3, this is a line, and the x term, one with no exponent, is what makes it a line. This makes it a line, so we call it the linear term. And likewise, why this is a quadratic equation is because of the x squared. This is the quadratic term. Quadratic term. And if we had something with an x cubed, it would be the cubic term. All right, quadratic formula. The quadratic formula. What we're going to come up with is a formula, some of you learned it last year, to solve quadratic equations. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. We are going to solve this by completing the square. We're going to do what we've done the last couple days, but we're going to do it without numbers, just using variables to represent numbers. If you remember, our first step is to make sure the leading coefficient is 1. So we divide everything by that coefficient. And that gives us x squared plus b over a x plus c over a equals 0. Now I might add that the process I'm going through here, this will be on a test or a quiz, on test or quiz. I'll let you know beforehand, but I expect that you can repeat this derivation, that you can use completing the square to come up with the formula. All right, now we want to get the constant term to the other side, as always, minus c over a minus c over a. And then we end up with x squared plus b over a x equals negative c over a. Now all we've done is divide by the leading coefficient and move the constant term. Now this is where it gets fun. We take half of this linear coefficient, so we have b over a times 1/2, because we need half of it, and we square it. We square everything in the parentheses. We get b squared, we get 2 squared, which is 4, and we get a squared. We usually always write the number in front. And then we add that to both sides. Plus b squared over 4a squared, and plus b squared over 4a squared. Now we factor the left. So we have x plus what? That is a goofy looking plus sign. I do it again. Now, how did we get to b squared over 4a squared? Well, b times b is b squared. 2 times 2 is 4, and a times a is a squared. Equals, now I'm going to switch these around just to make it easier. B squared over 4a squared minus c over a. Now, in order to subtract fractions, or add them, we need a common denominator. So what do I have to multiply top and bottom by? Well, I have no 4 here, so I'm going to multiply by 4. I have 2 a's, a squared. I only have 1. I need to multiply by another a. That gives me x plus b over 2a, quantity squared, equals b squared minus, the number is always in front, 4a and c, all over 4a squared. And we're almost done. Now we need to square root both sides, plus minus. And the left side is very simple. It's just x plus b over 2a equals plus or minus. Now I'm going to break up the numerator and the denominator. The numerator stays b squared minus 4ac, and the denominator becomes square root of 4 is 2, the square root of a squared is a. Notice the square root is only for the numerator. And now we subtract b over 2a. So we minus b over 2a to both sides. And notice here we have common denominators, which is going to be really nice. So we end up with x equals the opposite of b, this b right here, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. This is the quadratic formula. This is your quadratic formula. Quadratic formula. This needs to be memorized. You need to know this. You're going to use it quite a bit, frankly, and you need to know what it is. You can't memorize it the day before the test and think you're going to be successful. So please memorize this. All right. Go through this process very quickly because I also expect you to be able to derive it. We divide by the leading coefficient to get the leading coefficient to be 1. We move the constant term to the other side. We then take half of my linear term here, half of that linear term, we square it, and that gets moved or added to both sides. I then factor my left-hand side. Remember, what times what gives me b squared? B. What times what gives me 4? 2. And what times what gives me a squared? A. I factor this, and then I get a common denominator. I then square root both sides, not forgetting my plus and minus. And really, The left side stays the same, minus the squared and the radical. And the right-hand side, the numerator stays the same. We just really took the square root, as far as changing anything, of that denominator. And then we got x by itself, subtracting the b over the 2a, and we wrote the formula. Notice that this bar here extends, you write it boldly, notice that that bar extends all the way across. All right, it's under the b and under the radical. Very important. All right, there's another video after this one that shows you how to use the quadratic formula. Again, remember, you need to memorize it and you need to be able to do this process. So you will have to practice this. All right, I hope this makes sense and have a great day.